Greetings to you all in the precious name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Today we are reading Exodus chapter 5. This chapter can be divided into two sections, verse 1 to 21, first encounter with Pharaoh, and verse 22 to 23, Israel's deliverance assured. As we go through this chapter, may the Lord speak to our hearts. Exodus chapter 5 is about Moses and Aaron approaching Pharaoh and asking him to allow Israelites to go into wilderness to worship God. Moses and Aaron did not ask freedom yet. They only requested Pharaoh to allow them Israelites to go out of Egypt and offer sacrifice to the Lord for 3 days. However, Pharaoh said that he did not know who the Lord is, and he will not allow to make them sacrifice since he did not want to obey the Lord. In the later part of the section, we see Pharaoh gets angry with Moses and Aaron. He thought they just wanted to take the people away from their work. He told them that they were numerous and all of them had to work to do. And Moses and Aaron tried to reason with him, saying that they need to go out and make sacrifice to praise and worship God, so they would not be struck with the plague. However, Pharaoh still refused and further oppressed the people of Israel. In the last section of this chapter, we see Pharaoh punishes the Israelites. Pharaoh informed the gods and slave drivers that the quota of the bricks would remain the same, but the Israelites would no longer receive straw. This request was passed on to slaves, and the overseers had to protest. They knew that building the structure required straw, and they had no way of making the quota without this resource. The overseers tried to reason with Pharaoh, but he could only tell them that they were lazy and they need to get back their work. And the people of Israel took their anger on Moses and Aaron, and Moses began to question God as Pharaoh created more trouble for the people of Israel after Moses did what God to do. Some of the notes in this chapter. Verse 1 says, "Let my people go." With this command from Israel's Lord, the confrontation between Pharaoh and Moses and between Pharaoh and God began. It was a command Pharaoh would hear often in the days leading to Exodus. In verse 2, Pharaoh says, "Who is the Lord?" In all likelihood, Pharaoh knew of Israel's God, but his interrogative retort insolently and arrogantly rejected him as having any power to make demands of Egypt's superior ruler. In verse 10, we see the keywords taskmaster and their officers. When combined with the office of the children of Israel, a three-level command structure is absurd. Egyptian leaders, labor bosses, and foremen. The verse 11, the keyword straw, ancient documents from Egypt shows that straw was used to necessary component of bricks. It helped bind the clay together very strong. In verse 22 to 23, Moses returns to the Lord. Whether Moses and his brother remonstrated with foremen about their strong and wrong evaluation remains a debated point. Rather, the focus is upon the Moses who remonstrated with the Lord in prayer. Evidently, Moses did not anticipate what effect Pharaoh's refusal and reaction would have been upon his own people. Confrontation with Pharaoh so far had provoked both angry resentment of Israel by Egyptians and of Moses by Israel. This was not an expected scenario. In verse 8, the Hebrew word for idle, raphah, is a key word used to drop or droop. One may drop work, often suggesting idleness or laziness. In verse 10, we see the word bricks. A good clay source was absolutely necessary. Then the clay was sifted and mixed to the desired consistency by adding water. Generally, a temper, often straw, was added. This temper acted as a binder for poor clays and prevented wrapping and cracking during the drying process. Following this, the bricks were shaped and dried. Bricks were often inscribed with the official names, the name of a building, and or a dedicatory inscription. Moses had a major challenge on his hands. Not only did he have to convince everyone, including Pharaoh, to lead Hebrews out of Egypt, but he has to plan the whole process. To mobilize his countrymen, he first has to organize them and thorough planning. The acronym showed in this chart helped many leaders think through their plan whenever a major challenge or opportunities approaches. Predetermine your course of action, lay out your goals, adjust your priorities, notify key personnel, allow time for acceptance, head into actions, expect problems, always point to your success, daily review your progress. In the next point, we see the hardships in following God. Sometimes people are urged to accept Christ because he will solve your problems. But Christ did not promise to solve all of the people's problem. In fact, he repeatedly warned people to consider what it would cost them to follow him. And he pointed out the hardships that would come into their lives as a result of choosing to follow him. Exodus chapter 5 gives us a case study. Pharaoh's earlier enslavement and persecution of Hebrews was purely strategic. He worried that the growing sector of the population would cause trouble for him, but the situation became different. Moses and Aaron had rallied the people's hope that their God would soon rescue them. During their initial encounter with Pharaoh, and Moses and Aaron confronted with him the reality of God's sovereign rule. Not surprisingly, Pharaoh considered this as an action to his own sovereignty and reacted strongly against the people of Israel. When God's kingdom clashes with the God's enemies, there is often conflict and hardship for people of God. We should not be surprised, therefore, when hardship comes our way. Believers have changed allegiance from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light, and those who rule in the kingdom of darkness will certainly not let us to leave their power without a fight. We, like an ancient Hebrews, must stand firm in our faith, knowing that God will rescue the final victory on our behalf. Dear beloved, as God is speaking through His words, let's be stable and be strong in our faith and suffer hardships if it comes in our lives. May the Lord bless this short meditation in edification of our spiritual lives. Amen.